Today on Cruiseman's Garage, we're installing a SuperBrace fork stabilizer on this Honda ST 1300. Now the SuperBrace is going to improve the overall handling of the motorcycle, but especially low speed turns, rough pavement, tar snakes, and it helps to reduce that front end wobble. The tools needed for this job are a small Phillips screwdriver, a 5mm Allen wrench, a 5mm socket, a 6mm Allen socket, a ratchet, and a torque wrench. Before we start, make sure you have the correct SuperBrace for your year and make and model of motorcycle. We also highly recommend the use of the optional stainless steel fork protectors because we're going to be removing the OEM plastic fork protectors. Place the bike on the center stand and turn the front wheel so it's facing straight ahead. The ST 1300 has 2 axle pinch bolts at the bottom of each front fork. You should loosen these using a 6mm Allen socket, but you don't need to remove them, just loosen them. Go ahead and disassemble the SuperBrace by removing the 4 5mm hex bolts. Once the bolts are removed, you can separate the 2 halves of the SuperBrace. To install the optional fork protectors, we need to remove these 4 small screws that are on top of the SuperBrace. Now you can install the fork protectors as shown so that the holes line up. Reinstall the 4 small screws. Now we need to remove the plastic OEM fork protectors. Now I do this using a small piece of wood just so I don't scratch anything, and it's actually the handle off of a kitchen spatula, and I'm using a rubber mallet to gently tap up from the bottom, and I'm going to raise that fork protector up off the bottom portion of the fork leg, and once it's released I can then cut it off using just some simple tin snips. You always want to be careful when you're cutting these off of the tin snips that you don't scratch those fork tubes. Now once I've cut through it, it'll pull right off, and you want to repeat this on the other side as well. Now you're ready to position the SuperBrace, the front half of the SuperBrace, with the fork protectors installed so that the top of the SuperBrace lines up with the top of that bottom fork tube as it's shown here. And then you want to carefully put the back piece of the SuperBrace. There are some brake hoses, and you'll just weave it behind that and line it up so that the 2 halves meet. And of course now we're ready to install the 4 5mm hex bolts that we removed earlier. And I'm just using a socket here, and just go ahead and screw those in as tight as you can get them. And then using a torque wrench, you want to torque each of those bolts to 10 foot-pounds.